A 21-year-old from a country with zero history of Grand Slam seeds is about to make history before she has hit a single ball. She has not stepped onto center court. She has not played a single point at the 2026 championships. And yet, by the time the draw was finalized, the entire tennis world had already stopped calling her a rising star and started calling her something far more significant: a seed. How does someone from the Philippines, a nation that has never produced a seeded Grand Slam player in either the amateur or open era, suddenly find herself among the 32 most protected names at the most prestigious tournament on the calendar? The answer involves a grass court run so explosive that it rewrote her career in the span of 3 weeks. Her name is Alex Ila, and this is how she got here. To understand the magnitude of this moment, you have to understand who Alex Ila is and where she came from. Ila built her reputation as one of the most promising junior players to ever come out of the Philippines, a country with virtually no tradition of producing competitive tennis talent on the international stage. Her potential was recognized early. By her mid-teens, Nike had already signed her, a clear signal that one of the biggest brands in sports believed she was destined for more than just regional success. That belief has carried through her career, with Nike remaining one of her primary partners as she transitioned from junior tennis into the professional ranks. For Philippine tennis fans, Ila represents something they have waited generations for. The country has cheered for international stars from a distance for decades without ever having a genuine contender their own at the sport's biggest events. Ila has been positioned as the player who could finally change that. But her path to this year's Wimbledon was not a smooth, uninterrupted rise. In 2025, Ila made her Wimbledon main draw debut, taking on then-defending champion Barbara Krejcikova in the first round. Ila actually won the opening set against the Czech star, delighting the crowd on center court before ultimately falling in 3 sets, 3-6, 6-2, 6-1. It was a respectable debut against a major champion, but it ended the same way most first appearances do, in an early exit. Going into 2026, there was no guarantee that this year would look any different. Then came the grass court swing that changed everything. It started in Birmingham. Ila entered the WTA 125 Birmingham Open and walked away with the title, her second WTA 125 championship overall, and her first ever on grass. The win mattered for more than just the trophy. It confirmed that her game, often associated with hardcore consistency, could translate to fastest and most unpredictable surface in tennis. From Birmingham, she moved on to Queen's Club before arriving in Berlin for the WTA 500 Berlin Tennis Open, entering as a wild card. What happened next sent shockwaves through the sport. Ila defeated world number 2 Elena Rybakina, the 2022 Wimbledon champion, in straight sets. Beating a player of that caliber would have been the highlight of most players' entire season. For Ila, it was only the beginning of that week. She followed it up by defeating Alina Svitolina, another top 10 opponent, securing back-to-back wins over 2 of the most accomplished players on tour. Her run in Berlin ended in the semifinals at the hands of Linda Noskova, who went on to reach the final. By the time the dust settled, the numbers told their own story. Ila had won 9 of her previous 11 to 12 matches on grass. That stretch of dominance propelled her from 35th in the world to 30th in a single week, an enormous jump for any player at any stage of the season. That ranking surge set up the moment that would define her year. When the WTA released its rankings on June 22nd, the cutoff date for Wimbledon seeding, Ila's position at world number 30 was enough to lock her into the tournament's 32 seeded spots. She became the 29th seed at Wimbledon 2026, and with that seeding came a distinction no Filipino player, man or woman, had ever achieved in the history of either the amateur or open era of tennis. The first ever Grand Slam seed from the Philippines. It is worth being precise about what a seed actually means, because the significance goes beyond headlines. Being seeded protects a player from facing any of the other 31 seeded players until at least the third round. Instead of risking an opening round draw against a top star like Aryna Sabalenka, Elena Rybakina, or Iga Swiatek, a seeded player is guaranteed to face an unseeded opponent in the first 2 rounds. That is a structural advantage that can be the difference between an early exit and a deep tournament run. As for the financial side of competing in the main draw, Wimbledon's 2026 prize money structure offers a clear picture. separate from any seeding bonus. The tournament's total prize fund reached a record £64.2 million this year, a 20% increase from 2025. Within that structure, players eliminated in the first round of the singles main draw receive £80,000, while first-round doubles losers receive £18,000 per team. These figures apply to every player who reaches the main draw, seeded or not. They are tournament prize money tiers, not a special seeding bonus, and they are paid in British pounds according to Wimbledon's official breakdown, not in any other currency. There was another layer to this story that added emotional weight. The same week Ila's seeding was confirmed, Emma Raducanu was also locked in as a seeded player, taking the 30th position. Two very different career paths, an established Grand Slam champion in Raducanu and a first-time breakthrough underdog in Ila, were validated by the same set of rankings on the same day. With her seeding secured, attention turned immediately to the draw itself. Ila's opening match was set against Renata Zarazua of Mexico, a matchup loaded with history. The two had met once before in 2024 at the Cary Tennis Classic in North Carolina, where Zarazua came back from a set down to beat Ila 3-6, 6-4, 6-3. At that time, Zarazua was a higher-ranked player at number 104 in the world, 40 spots above Ila, who was only 19. 2 years later, the roles have reversed. Ila enters this rematch as the seeded player at world number 30, while Zarazua sits at number 76. The stakes attached to this opening match extend well beyond the result itself. A win for Ila would set up a second-round meeting with the winner of an enormous storyline match, Serena Williams against Maya Joint. Williams, the 23-time Grand Slam champion, returned to competitive singles tennis for the first time since 2022, accepting a wild card into this year's draw. Joint, ranked 53rd in the world, has her own history with Ila, having denied her a maiden WTA Tour title in a tense final at the 2025 Eastbourne Open. Either outcome would hand Ila one of the most attention-grabbing second-round matchups of the entire tournament. The bracket surrounding her gets even more interesting further down the draw. Defending champion and world number 3 IGA Swiatek, 14th-ranked Jasmine Paolini, and 25th-ranked Clara Tauson are all positioned in the same section as Ila. Each of those three players has lost to Ila in the past, a detail that makes her side of the draw, on paper, one of the most compelling storylines of the entire championships. Beyond the rankings and the bracket, there is a cultural dimension to this story that has been building for months. What some have started calling the Ila effect has followed her across the tour throughout this season. At Indian Wells, sections of stands filled with Philippine flags. In Dubai, fans tracked her breakthrough run with an intensity usually reserved for established contenders fighting for titles. In Rome, Filipino supporters created a visible, vocal presence throughout the tournament grounds. Even her practice sessions have drawn crowds wanting a glimpse of the player who has become the face of a new era in Philippine tennis. Observers and fans have drawn comparisons between Ila's rise and the impact Manny Pacquiao had on Philippine sports, a figure whose success united the country and elevated its profile on the global stage. Across social media, Filipino fans have expressed a mixture of pride and disbelief at watching one of their own reach a milestone that once seemed entirely out of reach for a nation with no Grand Slam tradition. The sentiment echoed repeatedly is one of validation, a sense that years of supporting a player through junior tournaments and early career setbacks has finally been rewarded with a result the entire tennis world has had to acknowledge. This is the moment Ila now stands in. She arrives at her second Wimbledon main draw appearance as a seeded player for the first time in her career, facing a familiar opponent in Zarazua, with a marquee meeting against Serena Williams or Maya Joint potentially waiting if she advances. The questions are direct and unavoidable. Can she finally convert this historic seeding into the deep tournament run that has eluded her so far in her young Grand Slam career? Or will Zarazua repeat history and hand her an early exit for a second time? If Ila wins her opener, the spotlight only intensifies, with Serena Williams' showdown looming as one of the most-watched second-round matches of the entire championships. Whatever the outcome of this tournament, one fact is already locked into the record books permanently. Philippine tennis has its first-ever Grand Slam seed, and the wait that lasted generations has finally come to an end.